Today I'm going to walk you through how you know whether you are a deep winter or a deep autumn. Here's my beautiful client right off the bat. If we get to the seasoning, of course, I already told you she's going to be a deep season. How do I know that she was going to be a deep season before I even put her in the palettes? Well, you can start to identify that, right? So dominant characteristics. This one is deep. Why? Because look at her eyes. They're extremely deep. Her hair is deep. She has that contrast. If you look at the whites of her eyes versus the depth in her eyes, there is going to be medium to high contrast. But you say, hey, Boston, well, how do you know she's not a deep winter? How do you know that she's a deep autumn? That's where the colors come into play, right? So if we go ahead and look here, you know, of course, my eye is trained, and some people say, well, this is Tiffany, I like her better in this and that. Well, that's great and dandy. But if I look here on the left, I see that her color remains versus on the right, she goes a little more gray. And sometimes the flags can be hard to tell. So then I move on to individual colors if I just cannot decide. And here, once again, you can see that on the right, that color is too bright. It sits on top of her. Another indication that it's likely not a good fit versus on the left, definitely blending more into her features in skin tone. And another really good test is looking at the difference between this ivory, closer to a white, versus an off-white cream. And as you can see here, it's too harsh on the left. And then you say, hey, Boston, well, fine, you say that she's an autumn. How do you know that she's not another autumn? Well, you test with additional colors. Of course, you want to go through all the palettes just to make sure that your analysis and theory is correct. Obviously, I've done a lot of these, so I know what I'm looking for, so to speak, but for someone that's just learning to do it themselves or teaching, figuring out, how do I figure this out if I know I have these characteristics, if I'm, where am I going to land? So if we look here, with the deep autumn, amazing. You can see that her value is deep. Value is key here. So she has the ability to wear darker colors because of her darker features. Now, warm is not her dominant characteristic. And even though you said, well, she is warm, you said, it's an autumn, so she's warm. Yeah, she could wear that, sure. But will she be more in harmony in the deep? Yes. Soft? No. We can see how much this just tones down her overall value. Everything just goes flat. She looks more, one-dimensional. It's just not, we don't see the value that she has in deep autumn. So that is why it's a winner. And as always, if you need help finding your value, your chromic, your undertone, I am here, link in bio. Bye.